I think the best players in the NRL were being showcased. Any one of those players would make any team in the NRL.
You're talking about at least probably in the high 40s or 50s, more possession. How the hell are you going to win a game when the set's against you like that?
It didn't look right to me in the dressing room for Samoa. I've got to tell you that at half-time. I didn't see the pictures that I thought I might have seen or I wanted to see. And I wasn't surprised when the tide went the way it did with the Kiwis in the second half.
DSPN is brought to you by Novus Glass, proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. The Special Olympics New Zealand National Summer Games is in Christchurch, Ōtautahi, this December. Across New Zealand, Aotearoa athletes, clubs, volunteers and families are getting ready, training, supporting each other and celebrating as the flame of hope travels down the country. Text Novus to 3598 to support our athletes. That's Novus, Novus, to 3598 to support our incredible athletes at the Special Olympics in Christchurch, Ōtautahi this December. Notice it, Novus it.
Welcome to the DSPN.
John Walker wins the 1,500 metres gold medal at the Olympic Games.
The All Blacks have won by 29 points tonight.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. Well, the weekend of sport still rumbles on early this week as we look back and at some of the most amazing contests that we've seen, I think, all year in both rival football codes. Now, I'm talking, of course, the Northern Internationals, rugby, and the Springboks putting on just an absolute clinic against France. And then later in the day, Sunday, the Kiwis winning the Pacific Championship Cup and beating Samoa comfortably in the end after being 14-0 down, coming back to win 30-14. The legendary former Kiwi coach, well, he's coached all over the world. He's a great friend of the show. Sir Graham Lowe joins us. What an occasion it was, mate. And also the quality of the rugby league. I was just so impressed with our comeback, but I've loved this tournament for everything that it has brought.
It was a great occasion. Great to see you, Marty, and thanks for having me on. It was a great occasion, and it was a great example of what those of us who watch it closely here and have done for the last 30 years, this has been waiting to happen. It's just been waiting to happen. And I think that anybody who can't see state of origin opportunities written all over this hasn't got their bloody eyes open.
Let's park that and get on to that in a second. Lots to talk about there. Just in terms of the actual game, how impressed were you with the Kiwi side that only a couple of weeks ago really struggled to put Samoa away? And in that game, out at Go Media Mount Smart, Toa Samoa had 2 or 3 opportunities where they dropped balls where they could have scored. I think it was actually level pegging going into the last 6 minutes. So to be 14-0 down and then come back and produce a second half effort like that.
Yeah, it was an outstanding effort. I mean, it's a terrific Kiwi side, and you've got to be really pleased for Stacey because, Stacey's got a good group of experienced former players around them, and it's good to see that all pitching in and hoping and offering their experience to these young Kiwi boys. And the young Kiwi boys have just produced a few players that are just outstanding. That I know the 5'8" got all the raps yesterday, but just over the series and actually throughout this year, that McLean, the centre or winger, the outside back, I think he's close. I've not seen a better player than him ever represent New Zealand.
There's some of the Kevin Ero about him, isn't there, Lowie, where he's just got that ability to throw guys off him. He's a big strapping lad, Casey, isn't it? Casey McLean, and he's got real pace. He just seems to get the ball, and he's just got options. Yeah, look, I look at him and I just think the beast. If anyone can remember Kevin Ero.
No, that's a good example, Marty. He's a good example of Kevin, but I think he might even be bringing something more. He's only young, and I just can't wait to see him in another 2 or 3 years when that mature strength starts to come in him. Now, at the moment, he's a boy, really. And in a few years' time, he's going to be bigger and stronger and fast. That bit more experience again. He's going to be outstanding.
Yeah, and it's expert selection from Stacey too. I want to talk about Stacey and his contribution here because the bench really came to play as well. And we saw that with the All Blacks on the weekend. But Nofahu White, who's just a monster of a man, isn't he? Just physically such an imposing guy. Seems to, every time he comes onto the field, be able to change a game. And, we also saw that with Aaron Clark as well, who, again, outstanding. I mean, he's, we know what his credentials are, Dalian Player of the Year in his position and things. But I just thought he got the overall balance of the team right. When you've got Tapani coming at 13, he could play in the front row, Lowie. So that young Kiwi forward pack, it just gives you a lot of confidence it must do going into their World Cup next year, with Australia obviously looming as the big challenge.
Well, it does, Marty. And I think what it stems from is there's just a little bit of blowback there, the feedback, sorry. But what it stems from is a great relationship that Stacey must have with all those players, because he more than understands their football skills. There's a chemical connection, there's a genuine bond between the players and the coach. And the coach can smell and sniff and know when to send them, and the players can know when they're going to be sent out. And it's a unique connection between the players and the coach. And I think Stacey with the Kiwis is starting to do that, and it's outstanding. And like you say, the World Cup coming up, gee whiz, we've got to be licking our lips.
Lowie, just on that, I mean, it's when you say that, it sounds like the same way that you coached. You actually had a real bond with your players and were able to really get inside their heads. And just looking at it from outside, when you look at this group, and they've all played massive seasons already before they come into camp, and I kind of wonder whether it's a bit like the Black Caps cricket coach. Do you actually, you don't actually have to do any coaching, is it? It's more just laying out the game plan. It's more giving them, I suppose, the self-belief and the confidence. It's more just letting, I suppose, those guys be who they are and actually work it out, I suppose, themselves as much as anything else. What I'm trying to do is, how much input does Stacey have on that game plan on the field? What is actually his contribution?
I think Stacey probably has 90% of the influence. It's not the physical part, because like you rightly pointed out, these players are professional players. They all come from a similar environment when it comes to preparation and whatnot. They're all well tuned in that, but it's getting into their heads. It's getting in the right mental frame and understanding every single thing about them, and that takes a little bit of a knack. Coaching isn't a science. Nowadays we're bombarded on the news every night on sport and whatnot about the science of coaching. Coaching is an art. Science backs it up, but coaching is an art. And Stacey has shown that he's developing the art to be a great coach.
Yeah, I love hearing you say that, because I've read a lot of comments, a lot of social media comments giving him a lot of stick about whether he should have got that job and what his credentials were and everything else. Well, I think he's emphatically answered that, hasn't he?
Of course he has. He's done it in a great way, and a great humble way that Stacey is as the man. I mean, Stacey's been one of our greatest ever players, and I think that he's had a long apprenticeship in coaching, and at this level with the Kiwis is definitely his niche. That's his niche without any doubt.
One thing that, again, I'm only looking and, watching it through the screen and things, but it looks as though there's a really good connection between all those players as well. They look as though they've got a lot of pride playing for New Zealand. They look really, as I say, together as a group, not just the guys on the field, but the ones who aren't playing as well. That, to establish that and get it so tight within a really short frame of time. It's only been 3 or 4 weeks, remember, that he's been with this team. That speaks volumes as well, doesn't it? Can you see that as well when you're watching?
Oh, it stands out like dog's balls to me. It's really clear, and it's not easy to do. It's not everyone can do it, and and that's what the art is.
Right.
The art of coaching, the art of actually knowing when a player, someone just needs to be brought in here, someone needs to be pushed away, someone needs a little bit of a touch up. It's the art of coaching, Marty, and that, I think that was absolutely clear as you could see yesterday. And the great thing is the response for all those Kiwi players have for one another. There is a genuine connection between those Kiwi players, and that's not easy to find. I'm telling you, that is. You would think it's easy, but it is not.
And I think it was defined especially in that halves pairing between Dylan Brown, who hasn't played his best in the NRL this year, but that's the best we've seen of him, was in a black jersey all season. If he goes to Newcastle and plays like that, they'll be delighted with what they've paid. And to combine him with Kieran Foran, who at the very end of his career, and I must admit, I raised my eyebrows at that. I thought, wow, does he really have the legs to play all of these games? Well, completely wrong. Of course he did. And that combination between the old man and the young man was just brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Well, do you know what, Marty? You know why Dylan played like he did? There's only one reason Dylan played. It's because of his coach.
Right.
Stacey gave him the platform to deliver it on. Stacey gave him the platform. He didn't give him a ticket to go and try things. He gave him the platform to go and deliver it on. That's why Dylan Brown delivered what he did.
And then to come back, as I say, from 14 down against a team that was way up for it. I mean, towards Samoa, they were buoyant at 14-0. What did you see the change was in that game at that stage to be able to come back in the second half like that? What did we start doing that we hadn't done in the first 40?
I think there were a couple of things. Just looking at the vision we saw of the halftime of the dressing rooms and whatnot, I saw it. You form your own opinions, and it's really you can't. You don't know the sound, you can't have the feeling or anything like that. But it didn't look right to me in the dressing room for Samoa. I've got to tell you that at halftime, I didn't see the pictures that I thought I might have seen or I wanted to see, and I wasn't surprised when the tide went the way it did with the Kiwis in the second half. And obviously the Kiwis just sat in there, had their chance to relax. Stacey got his message across. But that was the difference, the halftime spell. The Kiwis took advantage of it. And I think that's where Samoa lost the game. I'm not sure what went on in there, but it wasn't right.
Well, what were you detecting? What weren't you seeing that you wanted to see?
You honestly, the people who watch this, Marty, will think I'm trying to be some sort of whatever.
You be whatever you want.
Witch.
Okay.
But mate, I was expecting to see a winning look in that dressing room of Samoa, and it wasn't there. It wasn't there. I saw one or two people having a bit to say, and they weren't the people that I thought was going to be dominating who was doing the talking. And so I thought, what the heck's going on in here? Whereas with and when they walked out onto the field, I mean, the game went the Kiwis' way, but I just think that that halftime break, the Kiwis took full advantage of it and did it in the right way. I think that's where Samoa lost it.
There's some amazing stat came out in that second half where all of I can't remember what time it was, but it was we had a count of 10 more sets than them. And in a game of rugby league, you've got 10 more times in possession. And you think of all the tackles, even if you don't complete 6, you're talking about at least probably in the high 40s or 50s more possession. How the hell are you going to win a game when the set's against you like that? Well,
the vision show, 40 minutes showed that you can't. And the thing is, when you get on that downward spiral, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And you combine that with the excellent play that the Kiwis really sharpened up. The Kiwis really sharpened up on that period. And I mean, the simple things like, as boring as it looked, those little kicks that Kieran Foran was putting into the corner, just simple little things that we can see most of the kids down the road where we live, most of those kids can kick like that. But Kieran is an absolute thorough professional at making sure they were exactly the height he wanted and were landing on the absolute spot he wanted them to land on. And that alone put Samoa under a heck of a lot of pressure because he was just relentless.
And then you got guys who are capable, like Aaron and that, of just taking advantage when guys' backs are just slightly turned or the shoulder might not be on the right side or something like that. And and then the confidence starts. You could really feel that lift after about 20 minutes of the second half. I didn't think that Samoa were coming back. And it's not very often I'll sit and watch a game and think, oh, the other team's out of this. But yeah, you just looked at their body language as much as everything else. They looked shot. I wonder whether for them is a confidence thing at halftime and a self-belief thing, Lowie. This is a team that, when you look at it on paper, is a fantastic team, Samoa. But have they actually themselves had enough time together over this season, over previous seasons, to really sort of establish themselves as a team that believes in themselves enough?
I think they have. It was just that 10, 15-minute period over the half time. I mean, when I looked at the whole game, I said to my wife that when I looked at that game, I said to Kieran, just about, I would say, throw a blanket over those guys, Samoa and the Kiwis. You've got the best players in the NRL out there. There's a few others that have been playing up in England.
Oh, yeah.
But the best players in the NRL are playing in this game. And that's the quality that we were delivered up.
Yeah, I must admit, I've just enjoyed the whole thing, and I don't know a league fan that can sit there and not love the fact that we now have 4 or 5 competitive teams. When you look at World Rugby's got perhaps about 10 competitive teams. So now that league can get to a stage where it's got 4 or 5. And let's go back to your comments right at the start, where you were saying that you've been telling anyone who will listen in the NRL that this has been sitting there bubbling away. Why don't you just open the door and tap into it? Give us more of that.
Well, as I said, Marty, I think the best players in the NRL were being showcased yesterday. Any one of those players would make any team in the NRL, which is the toughest competition in rugby league. And so when I look at the effort those club mates put against one another, it's the absolute perfect ingredient for Origin football. And I remember... I remember in the late 90s, the meetings I've had with all the club representatives that were playing at the time over in Sydney, meeting with them all and saying, this could happen. This is what could happen. But they couldn't see it. They're bloody blind. I'm telling you, they'll still be blind to it now. How
can you be blind when you've watched, and if this tournament had taken place in New Zealand exclusively and it wasn't on Australian soil, I can imagine a few people would say, yeah, but we won't get those crowds. You played at 4 different venues. You played at 2 in Auckland and got massive crowds. Okay, then you played at Suncorp and got a huge crowd. Then you played at CommBank and got a huge crowd. So that's Brisbane and Sydney both packing out to watch teams that aren't Australia. There you go.
Honestly, mate, they've been waiting for this to happen. I'm telling you, this hasn't just happened. This has been bubbling away for years and years, just exactly the same. I remember having a talk to all the CEOs in the NRL. I remember them talking to them in 1986. I remember saying to them, you were going to be surprised because in all your development systems coming through, all your under 20 players, all your under 17 players, all the best ones are going to be with links back to New Zealand. They will be of Pacific descent, I'm telling you. And you have an honest look at all the NRL clubs now.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much how it's getting. This has just been waiting to happen, and it's brilliant. It's what happens next. Yeah. That is the thing. It's what happens next. Because as much as I like the NRL, I think there's a little bit of, they've developed a little bit of an arrogance about it. There seems to be, I don't know, there just seems to be a little bit of an arrogance about not the clubs, just at the top end of the NRL themselves. And I think that it's up to them now to respond to what the players have delivered.
I think you're 100% right. And this needs to be said. It needs to be said publicly. A lot of people need to hear this, you saying this, because every sport is looking for something new to add. The NBA have decided to play another in-house competition inside their competition called the NBA Cup, which goes on. We're getting a lot of sports going, how do we milk more money out of this? You've just had a big window open to you here. Here it is. Here's the crowds. Here's the players. How do they do it, though? I don't think you can, what, does it need a separate Origin? You can't put all of these guys in Origin, or can you? Or does it need an Origin for what the normal state of Origin is, and then some kind of other Origin to go alongside it?
There needs to be another Origin over here in New Zealand. You can't, the NRL is a great competition, and you don't want to bastardize it. So got to be careful with that. the state of origin is a great competition, and that's got to be careful. That's not bastardized as well.
I agree.
But you can add another competition like you're suggesting. That competition could run at the same time the state of origin is over in Australia. We could have a state of origin type concept run here in New Zealand where it could be, to add a bit more flavour to it, say Auckland versus the rest, or it could be an Oceania origin where you have New Zealand origin versus Pacific origin.
Okay. What? Just before we go, I want to go up north because that Australian team has destroyed England 3 tests. They're really tough tests. The third one did blow out. But when you're talking about some of the best players in the world, like watching those guys play up there and watching the spine of that team and Reece Walsh as well doing his stuff in England as well, they're going to be mighty tough to bowl next year, man. I mean, I don't think you ever underestimate the Kangaroos, do you? You should know that.
No, you don't. No, you don't do that at all. And to be fair to England, I don't think the level. I don't think England was reflected properly in that Test series. I don't think they were. I don't think they were the team that we should have been seeing. To tell the truth, I won't go into whatever why. But England are better than that. England are better than that, and so we don't want to get too carried away. They're certainly a good side. Australia at the moment are blessed with some absolute wonderful, brilliant individuals. But in saying that, so are the Kiwis and so is Samoa.
Yeah. Let's not forget Tonga as well, because they're there and they're capable as well. So
I just think the future looks bright. Go back to what I said before. I think the NRL, I just think it's one of the best sporting concepts and organisations in the sporting world. But I see a little bit of arrogance. I just see a little bit of arrogance at the top. And that arrogance needs to open its eyes, open its ears, and see what they've got in front of them, because at the moment I don't think they can see the wood for the trees.
Yeah, just embrace it. It's sitting there. It's big crowds and spectacular footy. And yeah, it's right in front of you. One stat before I go, which I was amazed when I heard yesterday, that was only the 6th time that the Kiwis have played Samoa in the International Rugby League. And when you go out to New Zealand Rugby League headquarters and you look at the 100-year history and that, wow, that just blew me away. That's all. We've only played 6 times all that time.
Yeah, mate, it's crazy, really.
Yeah.
I know one of the most exciting and proudest moments I had. I've been retired, because of my health and whatnot, but because of a friendship that I had with Eddie Poaching, who was one of the trumps of the who's Willie Poaching's dad.
Yep.
So Eddie's passed away now, but Eddie approached me to coach Samoa in 1995, and they had 1995 World Cup up in Wales at the time, and that I saw then the players that we had to choose from, and it was fantastic. I was really pleased with the players. We had a few from up there in the islands up there, but we had a strong side. But I also saw the players we couldn't get because they were under the New Zealand umbrella, and we weren't allowed to get them. And I thought, what an absolute waste. And there's protecting your patch and all that sort of thing. Yeah. These Samoan heritage or Pacifica heritage players deserve the absolute. I mean, they get it with the NRL, and they show how good they are in the NRL, but they deserve another level that is higher than that to absolutely show what they're made for.
Yeah.
What they're made for.
They're
just brilliant. They're made for the game of rugby league, these Pacifica guys and women.
Yeah, I can't forget that. God, the Jillaroos were impressive as well. All right, well, just a brilliant competition in the end, isn't it? And it's kind of like it's tacked on or tagged on or whatever, and yet it just provides not only the quality and the excellence of the actual product of what happens on the field, and then you embrace what goes on off the field. And the atmosphere at those games is as good as any game of rugby league that you'll ever go to. So, yeah, here you go, NRL. It's right in front of you now. What are you going to do about it? More of it, please.
Okay. Marty, I'll tell you what, I'm a huge Origin fan. I'm a huge Origin fan.
Of course you are, mate.
That was as good as Origin. That's as simple as that. That was as good as Origin.
Huge thank you to Novus Glass for sponsoring this episode of the DSPN and for being a proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. This December, over 1,200 incredible athletes, along with hundreds of volunteers, coaches and other support staff, will be making their way to Christchurch or Tautahi for the Special Olympics New Zealand 2025 National Summer Games. Novus Glass is proud to be supporting something special, and you can help support the athletes too by texting Novus to 3598. That's Novus, Novus 3598. Thanks again, Novus Glass, for supporting us here on the DSPN. Windscreen, crack or chip, notice it, Novus it.
DSPN.